Yeah, thanks everybody for coming. I've been with Aqua-Yield since January of 2020, so not quite 2 full years yet. But I've been in the industry well over 30 years, from various roles with a liquid fertilizer company. I work for Cargill. Actually, Tom and I seem to be kind of following the same path. And then also a company in Wisconsin that brought me there. So we live in Madison, my wife and 2 sons, and it's a nice place to live. But if you're a Vikings fan and all that by nature, it's a tough place to live. So I am the only person in Madison that has a Vikings flag in my front yard. And then during Halloween trick-or-treating, while we get this going, a gentleman that lives just 4 houses down from me said he's from Minnesota. He sees my flag every day, and the first time he stopped in to talk to me was trick-or-treating. And of course, he's a Viking fan too, so I have some support on the block now if I need it. If this place starts burning down, I know where I can run for safety. But I'm going to talk about a few things here, kind of get you to help you understand nanotechnology and what we do. I'll focus on 4 products. So our Nano CS, I'll start off with that. That's our crop starter. Talk about that, why that's important. Nano K, where we've seen some really good trials getting potassium into plants. I think, is there some sugar beet growers in here? Yeah, so I know Tom's done a lot of work with our Nano K on sugar beets, help to get sugar levels up. So we'll talk about that. And then we got some micronutrient offerings, including our new Nano Iron. So if you have chlorotic soybeans or some areas in your fields, which we know up here is pretty prevalent, we have tools now that we can offer for you. And that's one thing, kind of maybe 2 themes. Everything that I'm going to talk about and that Jim and Darcy bring to you guys is all about a tool to help you on your farm with our technology. So that, and then also delivery. The tool is we can help improve delivery of nutrients and or crop protection. And I think there's a lot of issues going on right now. I know. There's a lot of issues with supply, with price volatility. Our technology should give you guys the ability to stretch your input dollar, stretch your acres. We've got some data, and I'll share it with you, where we can see sometimes a 20% reduction, if you will, in whether it's a nutrient application or a crop input application, or a crop protection, and get just the same, if not even better, results. So that, I think, will be very helpful for you guys, especially in this highly volatile 2022. So like Warren mentioned, we kind of basically kicked off Aqua-Yield in 2014, and really the first 4 years of existence was nothing but let's prove that concept. Let's find out the how, the what, and the why. So we've done hundreds of trials. We're probably, actually with this year, there's some in there that 650 needs to be updated. We're probably bumping 700, and we'll continue that. We want to continue to learn our technology. We're on different geographies, different crops. So if you guys have trial interests, let us know. But the one thing that I really want to highlight on this slide is, it's a 3-to-1 return. We average all those 650, almost 700 trials, and we're right at that 3-to-1 return. And you'll see that in the data I showed today. I kind of think anybody that wants to spend $1 and get 3 back, that's probably the most consistent product in my 30 years of this industry that I've seen. It's not just because I'm selling it, it's what I've seen. So what is nanotechnology? We put this diagram together last year to help kind of better visualize, because nanoparticles are so small you can't see them. And even if I put slides up here of our micron telescope pictures, you're going to be, what the heck, it just looks like little dots on the screen. So we put this together to help visualize. So they are mostly circular. They're empty to the point where we can pack in or load what we call other nutrient ions or crop protection ions. So once they get into that particle, and I should actually add that, we actually have to make these particles. They're inert, very safe products, silica, carbon. There's some processes I can't talk about what we do. It's ultra purified water. That's part of why Aqua is in our name for Aqua-Yield for our company. So we put all these things together and then we make these particles. And you guys will come across other nanotechnology type products in the market now because we're starting to make some pretty good noise and we're disrupting the market. So there's going to be other nano products coming online. But the one thing you can do to find out if it's a true nano is look at what the use rate is. All our use rates are going to be in that 4, maybe 6 ounces per acre. If you have somebody approach you and say they've got a nano product and they're at a quart or maybe a half gallon, whatever that rate is, because there's some of those products out there today, it's not a true nano. That's too high of a rate to really be at that particle size. So just something to keep in mind if you get approached that way. How the particles work and why we can do what we do is once they're in, and they'll load through either diffusion, areas of high concentration to low, or electrical charges. And the particles themselves have a slightly negative charge. So if you have a positive, like a potassium, for example, you're going to get a lot of attraction. You're going to get a lot of those potassium ions attaching to that particle. The other thing that happens then is on the outer ring, and we used to call this the Nano Shield, but we've kind of gone away from that in our marketing. You have the negative charge, and then you'll have a positive product. Could be that potassium. And then you'll have another product ion come that's a negative, and it'll attach to that positive, and then so on and so forth. So you'll build this layer around the particle. So you'll have that plus what's on the inside, and that's how our efficiency is. We can improve, or actually reduce, environmental loss. So if you're putting nitrogen out there, for example, by itself, it's not going to flow right through that soil profile and leach out or volatilize. It's going to be held on with these particles. So it's there longer for the plant to absorb. So that's really that delivery mechanism. We can protect it from that environmental loss. Let's skip that. So I'll talk a little bit about our crop starter. That's what the CS stands for. When I started back in January, I kind of learned our product portfolio, and I know what Tom and his team were doing is they were taking our Nano Grow product and our Nano Zinc, and they were dumping them in together to form what they were using as their starter product. And I'm like, that's a great product, but how can we make it easier? Because we're all about user friendliness. Low use rates. 1 jug, 2.5 gallon jug is 80 acres worth of material. How can we make it easier for Tom and his guys? So we came up with a 1-2-1 with 3 zinc, and we called it Nano. At the time was corn starter. That was kind of my background. But the more we thought about it, it's really more of a crop starter because it's not just for corn. It's really any crop getting planted that you have a liquid system. This is a good fit. And then also crops coming out of fall or winter dormancy, whether it's winter wheat or alfalfa, things like that. This would be a great foliar application to help get that crop stimulated and started for that new year. So we came up with the balanced NPK. We also added in the biostimulant package. That's part of what we do with our Nano Grow. And when you do that early on in the season, when you have those cold, wet soils and you can stimulate that biology, that's all just a good thing. You're just making more nutrients available. So that's what we have in this product here. Here's the label. It's just a 1-2-1. There's nothing special there, but I'll go over some of the technical. This is the only product that we actually do have a full rate of 6 ounces for our recommendation. Everything else is at 4. And the reason why we have this one at 6 is just because there's a little bit more goodies in it with the biostimulant and the NPK. So just kind of keep that in mind. And then it's very user friendly. The only thing that you'll see from us on any handling, we really don't want things in direct sunlight and we don't want things to freeze. Now if they freeze, it's not the end of the world. They'll come back into solution when they thaw. But just for product integrity, we just don't want things to freeze if you can help it. And then with the biostimulant in there, if you get a shuttle of this, for example, and you set it outside and you let it sit there for a week and it's 90 degrees, you're probably going to have some problems. So we just want to make sure that you can store that inside. That's it. It's that easy to use our technology. And then with some of the positioning, because we can do this product also foliar, like I mentioned, the perennials coming out of winter, whether it's alfalfa, winter wheat, we can do a 2 to 6 ounce application there, foliar, to wake up that crop and get it going. Anything in furrow, we got a lot of corn data. we talked about that uniform emergence, you know, that tabletop corn. That's maximizing your yield potential. Anytime you have that uneven corn or sunflowers coming up, you're losing yield. So Nano CS really helps get that corn off to a better, more uniform start. Better early vigor with that biostimulant. You're just mobilizing more nutrients around that seed zone. The other thing, and I'll talk about it when I show the data, is less salt applied, because we do have some opportunities. Instead of going out at maybe 5 or 6 gallons of a NPK or 1034O, we can actually cut that down maybe 30% or even 50%. So we're reducing that salt going on with the seed, and we're seeing a nice yield bump from that. And then I know with what Tom and Jim and Darcy are doing with calcine, crystal carbon, and Nano CS, that's a really nice starter package. And I know you guys have been seeing some really good results. They don't ever share them with me though, but I know I've heard that they're good. Okay, so I'll go back 2 years ago. This is our first year with this product. We were still in testing. This is 2020. This is a third-party cooperator in northwest Missouri. Actually, it's just about 50 miles southeast of Kansas City. Not really good corn area. Really light soils. They burn up when it's dry. They flood when it's wet. But this cooperator, I've worked with him in the past, does a really thorough job. This is all replicated. In his 5-gallon 318-18, that's the standard program across the farm. So what we did is we put in a trial. We added 6 ounces to the standard, the 5 gallons, and we saw a nice 8% increase in yield. But when we cut that rate in half and we went down to 2.5 gallons, we saw about a 41% increase in yield. Now this year, when this corn was planted, it was really hot and dry, and then it got wet later in the season. So the yields really weren't that great. I think we were only in the 140 bushels in that range. But this tells me, and I think it should tell everybody, is when you eliminate 50% of the salt, even though these are low salt, really good fertilizers, 624-6, you know, products like that, you're improving that environment where that seed's germinating by eliminating that salt with the tool of Nano CS. So we wanted to repeat this, and we did. And this year I got this data back in October. So first of all, the thing that grabbed me was look at the yields. You know, this year they had a much better growing season. 2020, like I said, they were in the 140s, 150s. The 5-gallon rate, here's the control. Here's the 2.5 gallon, and then the 5, the full rate with our Nano CS. And you can see there's not as big of a separation between crop response, but we're still seeing a really nice response. We're seeing more yield, and we're seeing less input cost. So if you guys are facing issues getting enough starter or enough whatever this year, like I know a lot of people are, if you can go from a full rate down to a 50% rate of something and do better, I think that's a really good program. You know, this is costing almost $5 a gallon, so we saved them, you know, almost, what, $15 right out of the gate for input costs, and then we added some yield to it. So really good return on investment there. Same thing, we did this in Whitewater, Wisconsin, really good area of southern, kind of between Madison and Milwaukee, good corn ground, third-party cooperator again. We did this in 2020. I think if you guys saw the presentation last winter I did, I think we only had about a $2 an acre return, so it wasn't very significant, but it was positive. This year we saw a much better return when we added Nano CS, and at the reduced rate, and then at the full rate of 5 gallons of 624-6, you can see what those returns on investment are. Now this trial site, and I'll show some of our Nano N as well, you know, he's just managing this farm for trials. He's not a high-end yield guy. I think if he would turn this farm into that high-end yield, we've got some things we've learned, because every time we increase our fertility here, we see a nice response, even with our technology. So it's not always about saving or reducing. It's always about, it's also about having a crop response. So this is down in Milton, Indiana. It's kind of south central, southeast Indiana. This is on soybeans, so this is the first time we actually took Nano CS and added it to soybeans. This grower, who actually is an agronomist for us, he farms with his dad, they do 2 gallons of 624-6 on all their acres of their soybeans. So he took 6 ounces and added that to the 2 gallons, and just about a 3-to-1 return. And then when he took 1 gallon out, so he went 50% less fertilizer, look what he did on that return, 6.7. So a really nice yield bump, and then he saved money on the starter. So anytime you have that opportunity to stretch your acres or your dollars, you know, nanoliquid is a really good tool for you to do that. Excuse me. This is another trial we did 2 years ago. And here again, we're just at a flat 2.5 gallons. This is 1137. It's not a preferred starter by any means. It's a higher salt. And the cooperator, I really tried to get him to go 5 gallons and then the 2.5 so we could see that effect. But he's like, no, I can't go 5 because I know I already hurt my germination. So there again, you know, he's using a product that he probably really shouldn't be using in furrow. But even adding 6 ounces of Nano CS to that, we had a nice almost 4 bushel increase. So nice return here as well. So it's not always about reducing what you're already doing. Any questions on Nano CS, crop starter? Okay. We're right on time, Jim. So Nano K, we'll talk about this a little bit. And maybe I'll have to have some input from Tom on some of the sugar beet data, but this is a really nice way, even if you have high potassium soils, a lot of time it's locked up in clays and whatnot, and it's not available to the plant. Nano K is something that can actually help not only get potassium into your plant, but as those plants respond and exudate, you know, the root exudates coming out, it's signaling to those bacteria in the soil that, hey, you know, we've got potassium going on up here, we need more, and it'll help start mineralizing and mobilizing some of that. Am I in the way? Oh, okay. I saw some smiles back there, but. So anyway, so this is potassium acetate also, which is a very good form of potassium. It's not potassium chloride. We're not adding anything negative. Acetate actually is made by the plant. It's used in the energy cycle. So if you can add it without it having to do that, you can actually see a better crop response, and that's what we see. Very consistent results with this product. So it's an 0021, you know, 4 ounces per acre, whether it's foliar or in furrow, however you want to use it. And then here again, same storage. I always like to show this. It's user-friendly, you know. It really doesn't get any easier than nanoliquid from Aqua-Yield, in my opinion. So here's a third-party study we did. This is down in Indiana, ABG, Ag Services. All they did is add 4 ounces of Nano K foliar on their soybeans. And you can see we went from about 67 bushel up to 70.7. So a super good return. We're at about a 3-to-1 again. There's that consistency. Planted on May 15th, and I was asked this yesterday, when was it applied? Well, I didn't have that, but I looked it up yesterday. It was applied on July 23rd. So what is that, about 37, 38 days after planting? It gives you guys an idea of timing. I'm sure that they threw it in with their herbicide spray because we don't really want any of those extra trips unless there's really something out there you're really deficient and it's an emergency. But for the most part, our products can get that free ride with whatever you're doing across the field. Here's some more Nano K data. This is also from Joe out in Milton, Indiana, where we saw that previous with Nano CS. So he's just foliar applying Nano K compared to doing nothing. So we're seeing nice responses. Soybeans, corn, and then he also has some orchard grass. And you can see what the return is there. So he's probably a low fertility application on his orchard grass, so he threw this out there, and any kind of nutrient addition, he's going to see a nice response, and we saw that there. So a very effective tool Tom, did you want to add anything on the sugar beets at all, since there's some growers in here, or on what you've seen with Nano K?
Yeah, so what we've seen to date with it is basically about 3/4 of a point of additional sugar on it. So we're getting about, the return on that right now is about 5 to 1. So so it's 3 applications, all Worcester Cosper sprays, 3 applications of Nano K at 4 ounces. And basically those would be on your first, second, and fourth sprays. And we've been seeing very good return on the sugars from there. That's against piles, that's against pilers, that's both Elbow Lake as well as Crookston, Minnesota, and East Grand Forks. So we've had all 3 locations where we've seen that type of an increase. That's been in the average. We've been higher and lower than that, but most of the average, nothing, never a negative, but always a positive. But that's using potassium acetate, not potassium hydroxide. The acetate's a sugar base, so it helps raise the sugars in the beets. So you have to look at that aspect of it. So from there. But yeah, we've had very good success with it to date. And seen yield increase too, but as sugar beet growers and other consultants in here know, it's not easy to measure this on a field by field, row by row basis from that standpoint, okay? So those are generalizations on whole fields, whole farms, what we've seen from one year to the next, or from field to field, or from against their counterparts in the pilers, okay, and against the co-ops. So from there.
You can tell about one of our producers down by Kindred two years ago on corn, where we found K deficiencies taking place with 8-foot tall corn out there. We got an airplane in and did a 400-acre trial. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we did, so again, saw major potassium deficiency. We did 6 ounces of Nano K across row the field. So we split the field by across row. Unfortunately, the field stood out till spring to get the harvest done, but we still saw about 20 bushels differential between the 2 halves of the field where we did it. We did another trial this year over, again, these are farmer trials, so there's not replicated data, but test weights and in just north of the Perham area with Nano K saw basically 3.5 pounds per bushel differential on the corn test plot where we applied it. So just heavier test weights. So it went from 57 up to 61 pound test weight on corn. So still good, but even a lot better from that standpoint. And then we've had a number of guys who have done side-by-sides in fields where we've seen these types of Nano K on dry beans, Nano K on soybeans, where we've seen additional yield based on a potassium deficiency as we've kind of went through it over a number of areas. So again, the reason we don't publish a lot of this is because it's farm data. Okay, it's not university replicated. This is side-by-sides, but it's the things we can talk about from there. But the best trial work is done on your own farms to try this. These are easy to add to a load. If you want to trial Nano K, you can basically start spraying, stop, add it to the tank, finish out without having to do a total clean out or having to do anything on that sort. So any of the nano products are easy to add, and basically to spray 20 or 40 acres, it's easy to measure in and do. So from there. So it's not like you have to clean down, suck everything out, restart over, and go at it. These are much more friendly than that for any of the trials. So, but again, sugar beets, I'm very confident to stand in front of you that we are going to continue to expand that program over and over and over again now. I mean, that's going to be one of the major emphasis programs for us, and then in the next 12 to 24 months from there.
And when you're talking about the ROI, it means that farmers aren't putting more money in. They're getting the return.
They're getting more out, right? Correct.
Yep.
That's the return.
That's the bottom line.
And if you want to see, I've got the one at Elbow Lake. I've got every load that we harvested, every against the piler, that he delivered, and every one that was tested, and all of the differentials. And he ran a good solid 3/4 of a point. In some cases, he was in higher than that, but solid 3/4 is what we've been seeing on an average across. So
Yeah, great. Thanks,
Yep.
Tom. Yeah, I mean, we can do all the third-party data and, and trialing that we can do if we have the budget. Excuse me, but it really helps us answer those, the why, the how, and the what question. But the proving ground, to me, is what Tom just said. It's really on your guys' farm. We really want to get as much out there. You know, we trial a lot of stuff out at Warren's farm. But that you guys are you're the end user. So if it works there, then we know we got something. So I know Jim loves doing trials, so hit him up for it. We got as much, I shouldn't say free product, but we have trial product. Excuse me. So I got just a couple slides. Nano N. This is one of our products that's actually specifically made to go in with nitrogen. A lot of our other products are pretty flexible on, how you use them. But Nano N is something, if you're using a liquid, UAN 28%, could even be a slow release nitrogen. Maybe it's a dry soluble nitrogen product. Nano N is designed to really help improve that nitrogen use efficiency. And we've seen this again, time and time again, the last 2 years, very consistent. Whenever we add that into a nitrogen application, we're seeing a positive return, 3 to even 4 to 1 on this one. We've found something that really helps that nitrogen get into the plant, protects it. Like I said, you're not getting those environmental losses. This is 10 replications. This is also Indiana, at Joe Flum's Milton, Indiana site. So he just added it right in. Didn't reduce any rate, but he saw a very nice return. It's really dry in here, so I apologize for that. This trial we did, this is also at Whitewater in Wisconsin. This is in 2020. This is our first time out with actually Nano N. The control, no UAN, no side dress. We went out at 11 1/4 gallons, and then we went out at 15 gallons. And when we added Nano N, we saw a nice little bump each time. About a 4 to 1 return, especially when you're looking at doing nothing. It's all about that nitrogen use efficiency. When you guys apply nitrogen to your soil, it's immediately going through processes that are making it not available to the plant, whether it could be volatility, if it's on top, you get a rain or something afterwards, you could get some leaching, it mobilizes. The Nano N really helps protect that and hold on to it in that soil longer. It's more available to your plant. And I know nitrogen, just like all the other inputs, are going through the roof right now. So if you really want to have a tool to stretch that dollar again, stretch that acre, take a look at Nano N, because you're looking at a cost of less than probably $6 an acre for the Nano N product itself. So really easy, I think, to fit into a program. Of course, I'm not the one writing the check, but it's easy for me to say. So we'll talk a little bit about iron. 2 weeks ago, we launched Nano Iron. We've had it out in various trials. We saw enough good response from that we said, okay, let's just launch it and let's just get it out there. Let as many guys use it as they need to. It's a really effective tool. We know there's lots of other iron products on the market today. But here again, for really less than that, right around that $6 an acre for 4 ounces, compared to some of the other costs of the products on the market today, we've got a really good tool, again, for you guys to use and get that positive return. I mean, you guys know this better than I do, but I wanted to just throw this up. Through the valley here, excuse me, a lot of high rates of that iron deficiency chlorosis. You guys are probably battling with that today if you have soybeans. Some of the salinity issues come into play as well. So we know that there's a need to have added iron up here because it's just not as available to the plant. A couple reasons why. We've already talked about salinity. So if you have those high levels, you're going to have some iron tie-up where it's not going to be available to the plant. And also if you have your calcium carbonate equivalent ratios where they shouldn't be, you're going to end up down in here, and that's where you're going to have some stunting, yellowing of your soybeans. Can even possibly sometimes affect corn. So we know that we have an issue up here. We know we need a solution. One other thing that ties up iron, this is going back to basic agronomy. As your pH increases, your iron becomes less and less available. pH is up in this part of the world, I'm, 7.5 to 8.5. So we know that that's getting tied up. So to the rescue, nano iron. It's a 4% iron EDTA. There's really nothing fancy or special about the iron that's in that jug. What's special is the nano liquid technology. Keeps that iron from being tied up by that pH in the soil. It's more available to the plant. Once it gets in the plant, it actually mobilizes a little bit better than some of the other products on the market today. So if you want to try some, we can do as many trials as you guys want. 4 ounces again, no need to really go through that. Here's some of the positioning. If you're doing a liquid starter, we can spike it in. Just helps improve. It's a great tool, obviously, to manage that IDC. 4 ounces again, and it works the same way foliar or soil applied. So maybe it's a double shot. Maybe if you have severe acres, you have that IDC issue, and you have a liquid in furrow, maybe we put some in at planting, then come back with a planned foliar. That's what Tom and Jim will help walk you through. But prior to what we had with the nano iron is we had Nano Pack, which is a 2% iron. Oh, yep. Yeah, add in. Do you want me to go back?
I had a question back there, so I just want to add. So on the nano iron, basically this would be a replacement like for soy green. So you're talking about a $7 investment, just under $8 for the nano iron, and versus a program such as soy green or versus those types of programs would be about anywhere from $18.50 to $22.50 an acre. So you're talking about $12 to $15 an acre savings on those two program differentials. But then if we add Nano Pack in, where we need manganese and zinc, then we can add the nano iron at a lower rate because you've got 2%, as Jim will cover here. Those differentials then are, about $12 cost to the farmer here, and versus an 18 or 22, but we're getting manganese and zinc as well into that program. So that's kind of some of the trade-offs, some of the things that we would look at from there. So I think so we're using the two in very good combination with beans, especially in iron chlorotic soils from there. Okay.
Beans and on edibles, you've used it both, correct?
Yeah, beans and edibles, sorry, yes. And then even on sugar beets, I really see that we've seen some iron deficiencies in the leaves the last couple of years, especially with some of the moistures, things like that. So we really need to go emphasis on that aspect of it as well. I think we haven't done much work with it, so that'll be a great opportunity to do some test work this year. So from there.
Yeah, great. So got two products left, Nano Pack, and then we'll finish with Nano Pro. But Nano Pack would be, obviously in the name, this is our micronutrient package. We've got some sulfur, but then copper, iron, manganese, and zinc. And so just a great tool if you want to get some micronutrients into your program. I think a lot of the dry weather and dry soil conditions, nutrients aren't as available as what they would be if you had that moisture there. So these are really nice foliar, 4 ounce per acre if you're going over for weed control or whatever, to really give your crop that boost of some micronutrients. And I think there's some folks that just walked in. I think you guys, this is your area, correct?
Just the wrong town.
Yeah, that's right. I think you told me that before, didn't you? I didn't change it. Actually, this is on Tom's computer, so. It's Tom's fault.
Yes, it is Mayville, North Dakota.
Yeah.
Ryan, let them know where you live, Ryan.
That's my bad. Thank you. But basically, you can see the line. I know it might be a little light in the back, but there's a line here, and they put 4 ounces of Nano Pack on that left side where you see the greener, healthier edible beans compared to on the right. One application, again, less than that $6 an acre for the product itself, and look at the return we saw. So pretty significant, nice tool now that they have when they want to increase plant health. I need to make a note of changing that. You told me that last time.
Is that made with that herbicide application or alone?
In furrow.
In furrow, okay. Yep.
Oh, you did that in front? I'm sorry, I thought that was a foliar. See, I got the whole thing wrong.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, we did everything in furrow, and then in a different spot, that was a section. So in a different spot, we also did a foliar application just to see the difference. And then we also did once of a like a in furrow and foliar later on. And there was a difference, but it wasn't near that jump.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm glad you walked in when you did. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about NanoPro because we talked a little bit. You know, obviously we know Roundup and those types of products are very, very tight right now. And if you can even get them, they're very, very high priced. And it sounds like the price keeps going up almost daily. What NanoPro can do is give you guys the opportunity to maybe have some reductions in your overall crop input program with the addition of NanoPro and still get the same, if not even more effective results. And I'll show you some pictures and some testimonials that we have when we actually use our NanoPro on some really tough to control weeds. We're knocking them down at lower rates of glyphosate than at the full kind of labeled or exceeding the label rate. This is basically an unloaded nanoparticle. Here's that diagram again to kind of show they're unloaded. So it's basically empty, and when you throw it into your tank with, you know, whatever that crop input or crop protection product is, you're going to load. So you got that diffusion again, right? High concentration to low. So now it's in the particle itself. Now that ion is going to be protected from those outside influences, whether you don't have your pH in your tank right, you got hard water, some of those issues going on. And then the other thing is when you load a particle and you have, I'll just use Roundup for example, or glyphosate, you know, we can put about 1,000 ions of glyphosate in one nanoparticle based on the molecular weight and size. We know it's roughly right around that 1,000. And then when you spray that onto your weed, you have one nanoparticle with 1,000 glyphosate ions going into that plant cell. And now it's going to unload. So now all of a sudden you instantly have 1,000 ions in that plant, in that weed to do its job versus unprotected, no NanoPro, you've got one glyphosate ion at a time going in. So a little bit slower, the plant can metabolize it, and then we have those resistant or those tolerant weeds developing. We can really load that plant up with these particles, and then it can't metabolize it, and we see more effective kill, even at lower rates. So that's really how it works on the crop protection side. This field 2 years ago, so I started in January, I think I said. This is in August. About a few months later, this was my first field I actually walked into that had a nano product treatment. And I was skeptical too, like probably a lot of you guys in the room, like Warren was when his son brought the nanoliquid to his attention in 2012. In the things that we saw and that Tom showed me, so this is kochia. You know, he's holding one dead one up here to show how high it was, you know, when the field was applied. And you can see what was applied, 24 ounces of glyphosate and 4 ounces of NanoPro with some status in there. And they were still kind of green and looked like they were hanging on, but what Tom did in that far left picture is he started splitting open stems. And sometimes you have to do this to prove it to yourself. And when I saw that first one get split open and it was dead inside, I'm like, okay, that's it. We got something pretty cool here. Something that I had to learn because I was that skeptic as well. But once I'm a believer, right? And that's what we want. We want to have as many trials and users as we can to see this. And you guys will probably never go back. I mean, it just, we had a lot of business in Texas for the first time this year, and it was all based on weed control. Actually, they got a lot of rain, believe it or not. You get through that Panhandle, Lubbock area of Texas. They had probably a whole year's worth of rain this spring and summer, and their weeds were just out of control. We sold a ton of NanoPro down there to help knock them down and kill them. So they were a believer, and they were a believer fast. And then this is another picture I'll just show because of the quickness. There's two things, and I didn't bring it up earlier. With NanoPro, especially with whether it's a fungicide or a herbicide, you know, you want to get those products into the plant, whether it's the crop or the weed, as quickly as possible. So there's two things to think about, you know, because we're putting thousands of ions in a particle, We get one of them in the cell, we're getting a higher concentration into the plant, and then we're also doing it quicker. So those are two really key things when it comes to return on that investment. You want dead weeds, right? So I put this picture up here because this is only 15 hours after application, so not even one full day later, this grower, and you can see the weeds. This is soybeans in New York State, just chock full of weeds. And it's hard to tell in the picture on the left, but they're already laying over, they're curled up, they're already being impacted 15 hours later. So you want that quickness. You're eliminating that competition for whatever moisture and things are there. So you're going to have a better yield opportunity. So that's just kind of something with NanoPro that keep in mind. It's a really good tool. If you're still skeptical on the technology of nanoliquid, go out and spray some weeds, because you'll find out in a couple days, and it'll prove it to yourself.
I used that stuff on a 10-acre piece this year that we had to redo because it's some winter kill and some wind erosion because we didn't have any snow cover last winter. And my brother was a non-believer, and so we decided to do half with the NanoPro and half without. And in 3 days, the side with the NanoPro added into it, it was just smoked. It was dead. Wow. And so after 2 weeks later, then my brother said, well, we better put some NanoPro in and spray the other half to get it, because it just wasn't even close. Yeah. And so now we use it in everything.
Yeah, that's great.
It's impressive when you try it.
Yeah, anytime you have, we have to be careful for what we say, because, we might say, well, we took down like those kosher that I showed you. I think the grower, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, he probably thought those were actually like Roundup Ready resistant weeds because they just weren't dying, even at 40 ounces, which was in the other field. But I think we have to be careful. That I would say they're maybe more tolerant of those types of herbicides, where they're still going to be effective. You just throw in that NanoPro, and then you see what Todd just said. You're just going to knock them down and kill them like they're supposed to. So I wouldn't call them resistant, but definitely tolerant.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing from there, is that these were definitely tolerant of herbicide, of the glyphosate, and that's what we've seen. But they're tolerant because of the the lack of pH. These were sprayed along with the New York picture. Both were sprayed at that 5.5 pH from there. Because when first time I ever visited, this is a member of the Aqua-Yield investors and that. He's also a turf grower. He only grows soybeans because he's got to get rid of his weeds. Okay, I mean, it's the only reason he grows soybeans in between turf. Otherwise, he makes much more on turf than he does on soybeans. But he grows them just to get rid of all of this mare's tail and water hemp that's there, because if not, that's what his turf field looks like when he plants it. Okay, so again, he thought they were all resistant, so he was trying to find other ways to control it. And I said, he was not checking pH. We checked it. He went out and sprayed and called me 24 hours later, and it's like it was totally a different environment that I'm spraying in from that standpoint. He had NanoPro in there. So I mean, that's the kind of things where the two working together really make quite a difference on what the ability is of that spray tank. But a lot of the weeds are not resistant. They are coming to that point. Again, read last night, we have our first dicamba resistant weed. So it's been, you can now dedicate, from the soybean standpoint, we'll lose that technology probably in the next 3 years. So, okay.
What weed was that?
It was water hemp in Illinois.
Water hemp.
Water hemp in southern Illinois and Kentucky. They found it in both sides of the border there. So we've got, so that has been a confirmed case of what they consider resistant. But I'll guarantee if we probably went after it with the right pH in the spray tank, we'd probably be in good shape yet. So, but again, it's going to come if we don't pay attention to these things, and we're going to end up. So right now with that weed, basically the article was we have no way to control it. Okay, from there. I mean, because we have nothing left. We do. They aren't thinking about Cobra and those kind of things. One thing about this technology with Nano Pro, and I'll throw this in, it safens Cobra, it safens FlexStar, so it helps with those types of things. Totally different in concept because we're loading them up, but it really safens that technology because of the carbon it's tied to. Okay, so that's the biggest thing, is we can do that. We had a field, you know, I don't think this ever happens to anybody in this room, but you know, Saturday night, this gentleman was taking his wife out to dinner. They were driving by this little 20-acre field in southern Wisconsin, and he calls me and he goes, we forgot to spray 20 acres of soybeans, and now I've got water hemp and mare's tail and ragweed just going wild. What do I do? Okay, you know, these are Roundup ready, so we loaded it up, loaded the tank up on. He waited till Monday morning, loaded the tank up, we put in Nano Pro, and we, you know, he didn't get stellar yields, he got 30-some bushels off of them, but he still had beans there. We didn't smoke them, we didn't hurt the beans, but we smoked the weeds. We at least got them down before they got to seed head, okay? That was the biggest thing he was concerned with. But, you know, that never happens to anybody in this room where something gets accidentally overlooked, so
No,
from
never.
there.
Any questions? That's all I got. I appreciate it, guys.
What is the cost of the Nano Pro?
It's very user friendly. It's, you know, MSRP to the grower is going to be just under $3 an acre.
Okay.
It's $2.84.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, I let them do the formal pricing.
I recommend using dry AMS, not liquid AMS. Okay, we get much better control of the weeds, and we get better water softening with the dry AMS. Okay, as you get to know me, you'll know that I'm not a fan of liquid AMS, and unless you're liquefying it on your own farm and getting it ready to go that way. One of the growers that was in here yesterday, he liquefies all his own AMS in a 1,600-gallon cone-bottom tank, and then he can circulate it, redo it, and uses it that way, and he gets the 3 pounds per acre, you know, he gets the 17 pounds per 100 gallons every time he goes out. So if you're doing that, you're on a good start. And then if you can throw citric acid in or a little bit of vinegar, you can get your pHs down there. Now you're in really good shape going out to the farm. So when you're using other liquids, such as Cornerstone or some of those types of products, you're not getting that full level of water conditioning from an AMS standpoint. So from there.
One other question we get asked a lot with Nano Pro is, can I reduce my adjuvants or cut out my surfactants? And you know, we don't want anyone to go off label, so we kind of leave that up to the grower or the retailer. And I will say that there are a lot of users today that say they leave that out, and it works. So we want to leave that up to you guys. There is an important mixing ratio, or not ratio, but procedure. We want to make sure that you know, you do what Tom's been preaching. Let's get that tank pH at the right level. So do that first, then add in Nano Pro, then add in your herbicide or fungicide, whatever it is. And then if you do want to add in your surfactants, you add them in last. We had a situation, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, down in Florida, where the group we were working with at the time didn't listen to us. We'll blame it on them. Maybe we weren't clear. But they actually mixed the Nano Pro with their surfactant and then added in the herbicide. And that's the only situation that we know of where we were a complete failure, because the nanoparticles loaded with the surfactant, and you know, that's not going to kill the plant. So that was a lesson learned. So we're pretty clear on, you know, our mixing ways. So if you have any questions, just let Jim and Darcy or Tom know, and we'll get you guys the right information that you need for that.